Honorable Speaker, Sir, Sri Pradeep Shroff, Honorable past President of our society, Nitin Singla, my colleagues, Mukesh, Trivedi, Gracie, and friends. I have great pleasure to welcome you all to this study circle meeting organized by Human Resources Development Committee of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. Friends, today's subject is executive coaching for business leaders. The importance of this subject, we all will come to know as the session, we are progressing in the session. And we are fortunate enough that we have with us the best person on this subject in our country, say Pradeep Shroff. Friends, Pradeep ji has been doing this service for various business organizations throughout the country for last more than 25 years. And today, we will have the benefit of his knowledge and experience. As our president is busy today somewhere else, and we have with us our past president, Nitin Singla. And Nitin Bhai has been associated with this program of executive coaching actively for last several years. May I request Nitin Bhai to take charge of this session and please brief the participants that how they can learn this, how they can be benefited from today's meeting, and what is the importance of this executive coaching for we, the chartered accountants. Particularly, I'm saying we, the chartered accountants, because chartered accountants are associated with various organizations and closely connected with executives of all big companies. Chartered accountants can certainly play a much better role in this aspect of executive coaching. So please highlight that aspect, and may I request you to please introduce Pradeep Bhai also. Nitin Bhai, please.
Thank you, Govindji. So I'll first introduce Pradeep Bhai, whom I have known for last so many years. He is one of the finest professional, business professional that we have. He was the managing director at Johnson & Johnson Medical Business and PRS Pharmacell, which was an associated, company there for more than 3 decades. And having retired from there, he decided to, give back to the community by taking up the practice of coaching. So he himself got certified as a CEO coach, and thereafter he has coached several senior partners at Big Four, business leaders of large corporations such as Aditya Birla Group, L&T, JSW, Hindustan Zinc, and also so many startups and medium and small enterprises. I think the importance is that this can become a very interesting, area of practice for chartered accountants. When I was having this discussion with Sri Pradeep Bhai, he said that, this is certainly an area where a chartered accountant with his understanding of the business as well as the financial aspect can play a big role. And therefore, this idea and thought came up that, Pradeep Bhai has now become a, you can say, train the trainer role. So he trains other coaches, and he will also talk about the whole, the organization through which this certification happens, Coaching Federation of India. And I thought this would be a good, important topic for us to know, because as the businesses become complex, also the routine compliance practice that we've been the CA, practicing chartered accountants have been relying upon is also changing significantly. And also after a while, I think after having done a few years of core practice, chartered accountants would look at areas of their own self growth, and this can become a very interesting area of practice. Pradeep bhai, having been at the peak of his career, took this decision to get certified as a peer coach supervisor. He's certified for Hogan assessment, Thomas PPA, and also global leadership assessment by Marshall Goldsmith. So without further ado, may I invite Sri Pradeep bhai to introduce us to this fantastic, kind of area of coaching, and how we can take up ourselves, we can transform ourselves into an executive coach and go about this new area of practice. Thank you, Pradeep bhai, for accepting our invitation. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody. It's really my pleasure to be talking to all of you about executive coaching. Now, coaching as a subject is very well established in sports. Every top sportsman will have a coach, and he will in fact recognize his achievements because of the support and help and guidance that he got from the coach. So no matter at what level of expertise you reach in sports, every top sportsman has a coach. Whether you look at Sachin Tendulkar when he was at the peak, or whether you look at Virat Kohli, or whether you look at anybody. So in the sports industry or in the sports field, coaching has been accepted as a very important element to bring in the optimal output or optimal capabilities of the person concerned. In the business world, this is emerging. Let me just share some of my slides, and that will help us see what I want to. I hope this is clear now. Okay.
It is
Yes,
fine.
Pradeep bhai, we can see it.
Yeah. So the way I will cover today is I will talk to you about what is happening in the Western world, what is happening in the Indian scenario. Then I will talk specifically about the executive coaching in business. To help you understand further, I'll pick up some of case studies from my diary and typical agenda to which we work for a client. Then I will make a short slide about the complete flow that we follow in a coaching assignment. So it's a very systematic and step-by-step method of helping people. Then I will talk about what is required to become a good coach in terms of experience and skill. What are the certification process, and what are the opportunities that are available to a chartered accountant. So these are the sequence of my discussion as we go on. So first, let me talk about the global stage. All over the world, as per the latest study done by Institute of Coaching Federation USA in 2020, there are almost 70,000 plus certified registered coaches. US and Europe have the highest number with 23,000 and 20,000. Asia is relatively small, only 4,600. Overall, if you look at the total revenue of this coaching practice, globally is almost $3 billion. Again, the US and Europe are dominating with 1.2 and $900 million here, where Asia is relatively small, $125 million. So it's still a big practice, but emerging, and one can see that if the Western world can be so big, India can be equally big, because India is a growing country. And if any country can grow only if there are leaders who are capable of taking the growth. So developing leadership pipeline is an absolutely necessity for a successful growth or a sustainable growth. So India has a big demand, latent demand for executive coaching. And I will elaborate on this little further as we go on. Let me cover what is happening currently in India. I find that demand for coaching in India is emerging. If I look at various companies in the multinational corporation, there is good awareness because these companies have support and information being flown from their, Western headquarters, whether somebody sitting in US or Europe or Singapore. So they have good awareness of this. However, the typical decision to hire coach is done by the global or regional leadership and development leader. Many of the multinational companies, the local Indian company may or may not have, most of the time do not have actually an authority to really take a call because it's a part of a regional HR practice, and the regional HR head would kind of get involved in decision making for multinational companies. Whereas in large corporates like Aditya Birla Group, Larsen and Toubro, Hindustan Zinc, there is increasing awareness. At the same time, in this larger the company, there is good influence by the CHRO or the L&D leader, that is leadership and development in charge leaders. And this is important in the sense that the CHROs are now getting to know the value of coaching, and in their hands making proposition to their top management to create budget for coaching and use coaching as an important part of the development process. At the medium and small companies, awareness is very limited. They are typically business owner promoters, and they really get to know through word of mouth. Typically, an MSME would approach an executive coach like me because maybe a friend of his or her has mentioned to him that executive coaching was useful to me, or sometime a private equity partner will recommend them. Because I have seen that many private equity partners, once they invested money, they would like to see that the company grows very quickly. Now, typically, private equity companies invest based on dream or the technical capabilities of the entrepreneur. As they go forward, they realize that the entrepreneur may have the fantastic technology and knowledge, but may not be a good business person, may not lack marketing, may lack even people management, developing leaders, etc. And at the time they realize that their growth may not come unless the leader of MSME, owner or promoter also goes through coaching, so that he is able to really become a rounded, all round in all the aspects of managing the business. Okay. Now, business growth in India, as I mentioned earlier, is going to necessitate business leadership pipeline. Now, some countries or sometimes people use coaching as what I call corrective coaching. That means the CHRO or the CEO of the company recognizes that Mr. X or Madam Y has good capabilities, but there are a few things which are actually coming in the way of growth of the person. Or sometimes in extreme cases, they think that, look, we want to be a very fair company. We do not want to just terminate a person. We want to give a fair chance to really come up to our expectations. So engage a coach to really help him correct it. In my mind, this is not the best use of a coach. And really the best use of coach is for development. That means you proactively develop leaders, because when the leaders get developed, the business grows. And hence, good organization proactively engage executive coach for development. Now, development can be at various stages, and which I will cover in my subsequent slides. So in nutshell, I think India has a very vast, unmet, undiscovered need for executive coaching. Unfortunately, what happens is the coaches themselves are fragmented. There is nothing like a big four coaching firm which will really provide various coaches based on needs of the company. Because sometimes a larger company will say, look, I want to coach 25 people. Now, one coach may not be able to handle that. And then you need 4 or 5 coaches. How do you get them? So there are, by and large, individual coaches practice themselves like individual proprietor. There are hardly any LLP or partnership or something which is significant. Only one organization, which is what Nitin Bhai just referred to, is the Coaching Foundation India, which basically develops coaches, has certifies coaches, is also able to work like a aggregator, if you want to put the word aggregator, because all the coaches certified by CFI become part of the CFI network. And if an organization engages CFI to provide coaching input or coaching intervention, CFI will then ask various coaches appropriate for the job and assign them for a particular client. So really speaking, though on one hand the demand is big, the coaches themselves are not well organized yet. Uh, Most coaches hence depend on leveraging their own network and word of mouth. You won't see any advertisements or even marketing on any regular forum. There are sometimes maybe cold calls, but they are very few. And people typically depend on their own network and word of mouth for getting the coaching assignments. Okay, now let me go into some aspect of executive coaching, why it is necessary and why it is useful. One very important thing, coaching is a super specialty within HR for leadership development. Now, why I call super specialty? Because HR or human resource department typically is empowered with developing future leaders in the company, either through succession planning or identify people who have potential to grow and help them in whatever way possible. Quite often, the HR department may have somebody who is a training manager or training and development manager who may identify based on the needs of the executive a training program. Now, such training program can be in-house training program or can be an external training program. Larger corporations like ABG, or Aditya Birla Group or L&T, they have their own big management development centers where they may have different levels of training and they may invite even Harvard and Wharton professors to conduct some of those programs. So training is a very big aspect of leadership development today. But the most important aspect after training is executive coaching. Because training, classroom or even on the job provides a lot of knowledge about the subject. But these days, almost everybody knows what is required to be a good leader. What is missing out is you may know what is required to be a good leader, but you may not do or you may not behave like a good leader. One common example is that almost everybody will say importance of listening. Everybody will say, yes, 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 I know about it. Somebody may even say, we have 2 ears, one mouth, so we should listen more often. But unfortunately, my experience is that a lot of senior people do not listen as required. They may think I am listening because I am understanding it. But listening has many other dimensions which people miss out. So now an executive coach becomes the last mile of a leadership development because after training, if you want to solidify the learning, if you want to make sure that what a person has learned or what he knows is now implemented, you need to engage a coach. There are a lot of research which are now come out which shows that what you learned in a training program starts depreciating very fast. And many times, if you really look at after 6 months, perhaps person is not even implementing 50%, even 20% of what he has done. Because quite often, once you're back from training, you're back in the day-to-day pressure and you may not really implement what you learned at the training program. Whereas executive coach really helps you practice, helps you overcome any resistance, internal or external, so that you really master, see the results of practicing it, measure it, and then you become very familiar with doing it. So you are then able to do it yourself. So that's why executive coaching is a very important, but a super specialty within human resources. Now, there are a lot of sometimes words which are used like consulting, mentoring, and coaching, and I would like to just clarify them. A typical consultant would really provide you solution. That means when you go to a consultant, you talk about problem. Consultant may be a lawyer, competence consultant, somebody can be a marketing expert, a strategy expert. We say, look, I want to act strategy, and the consultant helps you develop a solution to the problem. Or sometimes consultant gives you solution and he said, now you find solution. Now you find a way to do it. Mentoring is typically people who have good experience, good wisdom, and they are very happy and very good at imparting their wisdom to the next generation. So many times in a company, senior leaders are used as a mentor for developing junior leaders. Now, it's just a good idea to share because these mentors can provide cultural understanding and they have a lot of wisdom. Unfortunately, what happens to a mentor is that he may tend to tell what he has done. He may not really tell what the other person need to know. Like a good a mentor may come back and say, look, 1980, I did this and we did this and we did that. And the coach will say, "Like, tell me what is happening in 2021, and tell me what I need to do with the digital marketing then what you may have done with direct mail marketing in 1995. So that's what happens to a mentor who passes wisdom, but it may or may not be focused depending on the mentor's willingness and skill set. Whereas coaching is very focused. A coach will first make an effort to understand the coachee, understand the coach's need, what are his reasons, what are the opportunities that the person has got, what are the likely problems, and then work with the coachee to help him develop a goal that the coaching should take so that coaching can work towards the goal, make a strategy, action plan, implement it, measurement, improve, etc., as you go on. So coach is not for coachee centric. He delivers the requirement of the coachee. His focus is to make the coachee to become, to unlock his or her potential. And that's why coaching is a lot more personalized and customized process. Now, there are three ways of handling coaching. One is called individual coaching. Individual coaching means a coach and coachee meet one-on-one. They sit down and discuss sometime for 2 hours and 3 hours. And the coach basically focuses on asking questions, probing, and trying to find out what is the story. As we say in coaching, the coach really tries to find out from story to story behind story to real story. Because only when the real story is brought on the table, a coach will be able to help and make a big difference to the person. So in individual coaching, the coach is working with one person, focused on that person's welfare and goodwill, and to make him as best as possible. Now, good coaching is like a individual coaching, but here you're sitting with a group of people. It's like, if you have a private tuition one-on-one, or you may have a group tuition. In a group tuition, maybe you teach the same mathematics to everybody together. The teacher may or may not be able to give full attention to an individual. The teacher may move toward the average of the classroom, but when there is a need, the teacher may be able to solve individual problems in a limited way. So same way in group coaching, that you focus on individual agenda, but with several people sitting together. Now, group coaching has two benefits as again individual coaching. One is, in a group coaching, there is possibility of peer learning from each other, because there will be a lot of sharing of each other's learning, sharing experiences, and people can learn from it. And to a person who wants to really work on a lower cost, a group coaching will cost lower than the individual coaching. But individual coaching is a lot more personalized, and everything that the coach and coachee discuss is completely confidential. Whereas in a group coaching, maybe some aspect may not be confidential because everybody else is sitting through. Sometimes, based on the organization's willingness to really expand the scope of group coaching, we break up the group coaching into a group session and individual session. In a group session, we may discuss the common theory and common practice which is required. Individual coaching sessions are much smaller in time. Like in a typical individual coaching, I may take 2.5 hour session. When a group coaching, the individual session may be half an hour or 45 minutes. Specifically, it's like solving immediate need and attending to a specific problem of the coaching. Now, team coaching is a specialty within group coaching. Why I call specialty? Because in a team coaching, you are coaching a group of people, but they all are part of one team. It means either they are reporting to one boss, or they are working on a project, and all of them are focused to making the project successful. So they have to work as a team together. And to that extent, there is less need of for individual confidentiality here, because the whole approach in team coaching is now to optimize the gains of the team. Typically, team coaching trying to focus on getting maximum, that means the maximum output of the team will be much more than the sum total of individual output. So in team coaching, you really align people, you really help them focus to the team goal. But again, in team coaching, you have team sessions and individual sessions. So in the team session, we really talk about the progress being made by the team in developing the goal, in developing strategy, action plan, implementation, etc. Whereas in individual session, I focus on coaching the individual, keeping in mind whatever are the reasons why the individual is not able to deliver the best for the team. So the difference now between an individual coaching of an individual or a group coaching individual and team coaching individually, in a team coaching, the focus is on making individual perform for the best of the team. Whereas in an individual coaching, we work toward the individual excellence. So in the individual session of team coaching, we may or may not achieve individual excellence, but we will ensure that the individual's contribution to the team is to the best of his ability to achieve what the team wants to achieve. So these are the three ways you deliver the coaching to business: individual coaching, group coaching, and team coaching. I already mentioned this, so I'll just go through very quickly. It is super specialty because you're moving from training to knowledge building. In coaching, you train on soft skills, learn important some techniques, some practice in classroom. It's on the job with a shadow senior, work on a project. And executive coaching, last mile of leadership development, which is oriented like a Riyaz. I just mentioned about consulting, mentoring, and coaching earlier. That consultant gives solution, mentor gives advice, and coach will help you discover and unlock potential. Individual coaching and team coaching is also what I already explained: is one-on-one coaching versus group coaching versus team coaching. Now let me go to some of the coaching cases from my diary. Now, typical coaching agenda that we get are either a transition coaching. Transition means somebody has newly joined a company, or has been promoted to a higher responsibility, or there is horizontal move to a new function. Like maybe a marketing head has been given a manufacturing responsibility, so that he or she may be ready for a general manager job or a president job over a period of time. So that's a horizontal move. Or sometime, or maybe a regional head may be given promoted to national head, so it's a higher responsibility. Or recruit somebody completely from outside another organization for the company. So these are called transition. It may be transition to a new company, transition to a new job, or transition to a higher responsibility. Other set of agenda are sometimes developmental, which is helping company build a leadership pipeline. It basically focuses on increasing effectiveness of an executive on the job. Third type of agenda are succession planning. These are typically in a family managed business. What really happens in a family managed business is that as the owner promoters become very senior and wants to retire, he wants to induct the next generation to take over from him. And that's the time there are always issues which the owner himself or promoter himself is not able to manage. He will typically come back and say, my son does not listen to me because I am his father and I am not able to do what I want him to do. But he will listen to you because you are an outside person, but you bring a lot more effort and energy. So succession planning in family managed business is one very common thing. Succession planning is also common in a bigger organization, but that would then come as preparing somebody for a future promotion. Also, sometimes first generation companies, typically an entrepreneur started a company, maybe he has reached 300 crore turnover, but now he wants to go to 1,000 crore. Then he realized that, look, I need to scale it up. What do I need to do? What should I give up and what should I retain? When should I bring professionals and when should I continue to do it myself? Or do I bring in my family member to run the show? Or do I really do something else? What are the new business priorities that I need to do? So there are several issues which are in the mind of the entrepreneur. And a coach really helps him remove what we call cobwebs from his mind. There are also startups, people who want to be unicorn in time to come, they engage coach because the coach really helps them develop strategy views. And also, and I will cover that one of the case studies later on, is that the startup promoters are under tremendous pressure from private equity investors because they want to make sure that the company becomes as big as possible so they can go public and make maximum money out of that investment. So the owners or the so-called promoters of startups go through huge amount of stress. And in fact, sometimes some of them even have to take a psychiatrist's help. So before taking psychiatrist's help, sometimes along with psychiatrist's help, an executive coach is engaged. So these are some of the way an executive coach is engaged. I will now cover some examples with some more detail. So let's take a transition. Now, for one example is which I did for a large business group. The person was designated President Innovation Fund. He came out completely from an outside company. He was incidentally a chartered accountant, and he was also doing investment planning for an LLP that he himself had it. He broke the LLP and decided to join this business group to be head of innovation funding. Now, when he joined this company, I was engaged as a transition coach, and really what I had to focus was help him connect and influence SBU heads to support innovation. These companies had divided its business into several SBUs. Each SBUs were large, and some of them were global companies with some few $1 billion in sales. And this innovation fund president had to connect with the SBU heads and really get them to support innovation in their companies. Because all SBU heads are under tremendous pressure to achieve their sales and profit target, which is the committed to their, the chairman of the company, or sometimes they are public limited companies, they have committed to the shareholder or investment community. So at times, innovation, which is like a long-term investment, remains a backseat. So this gentleman, one of the important tasks for him was to really influence them, show them why it is important to invest in innovation, and how he can help them really connect with various innovation techniques and various innovation options available, so that they can really make sure that their future is continuous. Because we all know that a business will suffer or depreciate over a period of time if we don't innovate, if we don't find something new. But there is always that close balance between how much I want to invest for innovation, which is for long-term future, or for my short-term or mid-term future. Now, this gentleman, his biggest challenge was anxiety, because this was a new company, and SBU heads were all big shots. All SBU head salaries may be, $3-4 million salary. So he was not sure whether I'll be able to really get to them. They will listen to me, and they are all focused to their P&L, and will they really risk in investing? So he was very anxious. So as a coach, when we really try to analyze what is anxiety, and when we said, let's define anxiety, what happens if you are not anxious? And then we define the word that you are in a state of mind if there is no anxiety, if you have adequate knowledge. Means anxiety really originates from absence of adequate knowledge and experience. If you have adequate knowledge and adequate experience, anxiety vanishes. Now it looks very simple, but it takes time for the coach to really get this one sentence understood and out from the coaching. Because executives, as a coach, I may perhaps tell them, but if I tell them, the coaching may not accept it or may not even work on it. But only when we ask right question, probe, and really keep on drilling further, and the coaching comes and says, oh my God, anxiety is as simple as that. It is just not knowing knowledge and experience. If I know the right thing and if I have the experience, I am done. So then once he realized that the solution to his anxiety is getting knowledge and getting experience. Yeah. So then we work toward, okay, what will he do to get knowledge? And then we make a list of various action plan that he will have to do to get the knowledge, whether knowledge of the business, knowledge of innovation, knowledge of where are the most innovation happening in the world, and really build up his knowledge data bank. And then he goes to the SBU heads with knowledge. The SBU heads, after seeing his knowledge, will start respecting him, and then he will be able to connect and influence them. So a simple realization that my solution is acquiring knowledge, adequate knowledge, so that I can impress the SBU heads, I'll be able to influence them. Mind you, interestingly, this gentleman was an introvert. So it was hence very difficult for him to come out for connection. An extrovert will be happy to go out and meet people just on a drink or say hello. Introvert will require a lot of courage and energy to go there. And that's why it was very important to prepare him with so much of knowledge base that now he is very comfortable to go and talk to people. Then, for example, to help him really get the people. Now, what can he do to attract people? So we work with him, and he, instead of directly meeting them first time, along with the chairman, he organized a kind of a workshop meeting where he called all the SBU heads along with the chairman to understand what innovation can do to your businesses. And once people having heard him and people having heard the message from chairman, the importance of SBU, the SBU heads were wanting to see him now. So we converted that difficulty for an introvert person to go to them, where people are coming to him. So like one simple way for an introvert person to build up network is get into speaking forum like I'm talking to you. Because then it's much easier for an introvert person to be able to connect, because people will come to the person to talk to. So there are some of the tricks of the trade that you use, which come from your business experience, from what you have done. But at the same time, you don't put them on table. You get the coaching to bring it out. So that's just one example of transition coaching. Another, talking about developing leadership pipeline. There's a very large diversified business group. They want to plan for further growth. And what they have done is they have, for one of the group, one of the business, which is going to be in the energy sector, they have identified 6 senior vice presidents reporting to CEO for really making future in the energy. So each one has a unique requirement. Somebody has to be increasing his emotional quotient. Somebody has to develop and delegate. Somebody has to make executive presence. And the coach, or sometimes in some of these companies, there are 2 or 3 coaches working to different people. And the coaches themselves, like all of you chartered accountants do have a peer audit. The coaches also have a peer review among themselves to really know how they're moving for that particular client and what are the concerns or issues that are common of common interest, so that they can all be more effective and deliver what is expected of the client. So this is an example of a leadership pipeline being built up by large business company. Each one has a different coach attached to them. Sometimes one coach may have 2 or 3 client coaches, or sometimes only one, and each of them may have different agenda. But ultimately, goal is to really make sure that the business per se will develop the required growth. So whole idea is, what are the reasons and what are the limiting factors that limit you and your ability to contribute to the maximum growth of the company. Okay, example of a succession planning. This is what I mentioned, like a promoter plans to hand over to next generation. Now, some of the challenges which next generation faces, generation gap. The father and a son may have 2 different thinking process. I mean, both are right in their own way, but they may have different thinking process and find it difficult to align or resolve their conflicts or different views. So that's one of the challenges. Another challenge is, when a promoter has developed an organization, he also develops a large number of loyal employees with him. Now, when the youngsters come back from MBA and want to really lead these people, the loyal employees are very uncomfortable dealing with them. And also, they tend to go back to the entrepreneur himself, because they have a lot better understanding with them. And now both the sides of the work, the youngster who is going to take over and the employees, so that they can work together. Now, coach typically works with the youngsters to really help you understand these challenges and what he can do to really win the hearts of loyal employees and get them to do. Because this is where we have to balance between youth of the energy and experience of loyal employees. Because youth of the energy may want to do lots of things, but he may become very rash, he may become very abrupt, he may tend to offend and hurt people. Whereas loyal employees have a serious, big experience, and that experience will be lost if they are demotivated. So in this, one of the very important challenge there is to really help the youngster to balance youth energy with loyal employees. Now, first generation scaling up. Here, I was engaged by one FMCG business from a businessman where I was really amazed. He was only matriculate, but when I started with him, he was running a business of 300 crore rupees of an FMCG business. Now, he engaged me because one of his major buyer, big time, big group of chain, very well known right now in the media also, they appear often. So one of the very, senior buyer from there recommended to this entrepreneur that you have a lot of skill, but you really need good business leadership. If you want to move from where you are to 3 times more, you need to have an executive coach. So he suggested my name to the entrepreneur, and I coached the entrepreneur. This gentleman was something around 40 years age, but he worked very hard. He worked very hard because, as I said earlier, that he was only matriculate but very intelligent. He could not pursue study because of the family reasons. And he virtually worked like a hamal. He used to say, I used to lift 20 kilo load on my head and go from one place to other place. And from there, he built the whole entire empire. So his strength was really perseverance, very practical, very good ground level understanding of what is happening. His problem was that every time when I hire MBA, I can't get along with them and I have to remove them. But he realizes that I will not be able to grow unless I have professional. So the challenge that he works on, that he wants to attract and retain MBAs. At the same time, he is not willing to hand over to the professionals because he cannot trust them. He cannot give them the freedom and delegation that is required for professionals to really show their talent and abilities. So we work with him. We really helped him come out of the feeling of mistrust. I did a couple of psychometric tests and showed him in a mirror what are his strengths, what are his limitations, and why he is not able to get along with professionals. And we then started by recruiting one professional, which was from his known circle. So the first part of trust was already existing. And then he worked with that professional to really carry out a marketing function. He became more confident and then he started engaging more professionals and then he started toward his growth path. This is for a startup company managing stress. This is a what I call future unicorn. Today valuation almost $600+ million. Was started by 3 young friends from IIT, and they engaged me because that private equity investor suggested that look, you guys are bright engineers from IIT, but you need some help. And they were also looking forward to somebody who is equally matching to them in terms of skills. And so I am also from IIT. They were happy to engage me as a coach. They said, look, now you can understand the IIT culture and IIT way of working. So that's how they engaged me as a coach for the CEO of the company. This company has started packaging, and they are like, they have a model like aggregator model like Uber and Ola. They do not have any manufacturing, but they have tied up with large number of packaging manufacturing company. They have an extremely good online presence and digital marketing, plus few direct sales people, and they now supply packaging materials to big companies like Amazons of this world and deliver to them wherever they want. So they will source it, maybe say Assam, and deliver maybe in Chennai, depending on what is required, because that is maybe become the lowest cost for the customer. And since this required a lot of network and team, IT network, etc., they had this several $1 million funding from private equity fund. Now the private equity guys wanted them to become, unicorn very quickly and go public so they can remove their investment. And that's where there are huge pressure for high growth and quick success. In fact, I was coaching the CEO of the startup there, and he had already engaged a psychiatrist to help him. And then he engaged me so that I connected with the psychiatrist to understand the psychiatrist part of the whole process required to help this guy. At the same time, my focus was how I can help him doing his business. Psychiatrist helped him manage his psychology, and together we really helped him come out of it. And now he is absolutely in full command of his work. He's come out of his therapy. He's managing his whole business beautifully. His private equity people are very happy because before closing the session, I had a meeting with the private equity guy to validate how happy they are with this person in terms of building the business growth that they are looking for. So that's about managing a startup and managing state for a startup. I will quickly talk about the team coaching. This was one of my first assignment of a team coaching. I had already coached a very senior executive in a big technology company. And after my coaching, he suggested that, look, I should also coach his team. I at that time said, look, I have never done the team coaching. I have to learn the whole team coaching myself. How do I get it certified? He said, look, don't worry about certification. I know you are capable, you have last experience, you have led so many teams, you're a good coach. You synergize both team success and coaching and make a program for me exclusively. I'll support you. So he really kind of encouraged me, motivated me to start team coaching. So I went around and studied myself all kinds of books again, refreshed my knowledge on, team successes, winning teams, what makes a team successful, what are the various team games that I can play with them while coaching and leverage my coaching strength with them. The purpose of team coaching here was to really synergize the leadership team, bring them together so that they can maximize each other's strength. The challenge here were that each of them were working in a silos. Now, this typically happens in many companies because companies reward individual performance. Many companies, they reward mainly on individual performance. And that is where people look at their colleague as their competitor as far as the promotions are concerned. So to break that situation where the colleagues are not being perceived as promoter and not willing to share a team coaching was I developed for them. So I developed a complete model of team coaching for them, complete framework, delivered it to a great success. This team had taken a target or coaching goal for them that we would like to become the best team among all other teams of the whole bigger business. We want to minimize the turnover of employees or increase what I call retention of employees. We want to maximize or have more innovative ideas than others, and we want to maximize our profit. So these are the team goals. Now one can say, look, how are each one of them related? But when everybody has to look at what he or she needs to do to achieve team goals, everybody has to have different set of skills. So we work on the skills required so that his or her team will develop towards highest sales, minimize the turnover of people, etc., etc. And that's how we develop the whole coaching process by building on individual level skills required to deliver the team performance. And the team performance was continuously measured. We measured the skills at the time. An important element I brought in this team coaching was use of thank you or gratitude. Now, one will be surprised, how can thank you help you build a team? But it's a phenomenal adhesive to bring a team together. If you can see, the expectation of this team was leverage each other's strength, which means there are strength residing in each one. There are center of excellence for various skills, but they are not being exploited by others. Hence, the solution was each one needs to find out where is the best in class skill available, how I can go to that person and learn or observe that person and practice in my own area. Now, for doing this, when you go to somebody else and ask for help, you must give him a gratitude and give a big thank you. Now, this is what I did to really bring the bond. In each team coaching session, everybody was asked to present a small slide showing number of gratitudes given to each other. There are 8 people. That means each one had the opportunity to give gratitude to each of the individual 7 people. So they had to say, I gave it to Mr. 1, 2 gratitudes, somebody 5, somebody nothing, and write down total number of gratitudes given. Now, mind you, I'm talking of gratitudes given. Now, the gratitude given in a team session would mean that the number presented is correct number, because if you give a wrong number, somebody there will say, hey, you never gave me gratitude, you never gave me thank you, you never met me. So he has to only put honest data. He has to put honest data related to gratitude given to people sitting in the room. Which means he has to really go to the person, learn something which is relevant, say thank you to it, come back and use it in his job. Now, here is the peer pressure. If somebody comes and says that, look, I could not give any gratitude because I was busy, but many times these are either people who are not happy giving thank you because they think that's not the so-called Indian culture or that's not the way I want to do. But as soon as the slides are presented, those who are given low gratitudes will start feeling, embarrassed. Next session, I must give more gratitude. So he will make sure that between next session and this session, he will go out and meet others, learn from the person, give a gratitude and come back. So the gratitude reporting, gratitude given becomes an adhesive vehicle by which each one went to each other, learned from somebody and came back. Now, when you learned, you become a good friend, you started sharing and the sharing became two-way. So now the silos got broke down. Each one really became much wiser than what it was. Each one had a fallback, learning from where it was, and the team was able to deliver better results. So gratitude given is a simple way by which I got the team to really learn from each other and break the silos. So this is what in team coaching, one has to develop customized way of working with every team. Okay. Now, typically when I do coaching, what are the soft skills on which I have to do coaching? I find they are the most frequently requirement for which are required for uh, telling somebody to be coached. So the coaching requirement may be listening. Now, listening appears very simple, and typically people who are promoted higher up in the organization, they are there because they are good. They have good experience. They have good knowledge. Now, this is what comes as a handicap, because when you know something, you understand very fast. Your mind moves very fast. So your thinking is much faster than your speaking. And because of that, you tend to tell the other person, okay, I understood it. This is what you want to say. Hold on, I'll tell you this. I understood. Now, it is very likely that you understood correctly. But what you have done is you have kind of told the other person, I don't want to listen to you. Now, I don't need to know about you. The other person feels hurt that I have not been heard. And perhaps you might have missed out a critical point which may come later. So very important, the listening is not just to understand, but listening and to communicate to other person that I am listening to you, I am understanding you. Now, to communicate I am understanding you, you need to follow some very systematic steps for listening. Now for one simple process that we take, that when we find that the coachee is a very fast thinker, very intelligent person, we tell him that when you sit down with somebody else, you should write down bullet points of what you are listening to. Because only when you write down, excuse me, when you write down, your thinking speed stops, reduces rather. So by writing down, you are now encouraging the person to focus on what is being told and summarize bullet points of what you heard. Also, the person can write down what I will respond. So he will feel that, look, I am going to talk, but I want to make sure that I don't miss out. So by just encouraging and by developing a habit of writing down as you listen, you start slowing down the thinking speed and get the person to listen. Same way, to show you are interested, you need to show your body language that you are keen to listen to the person, which means you need to switch off your mobile phone, don't attend to your phone or WhatsApp messages, you need to pay full attention to the person. So your body language, the way you attend to the person and whatnot. So each of these steps we work to it. We ask the coach to practice them. Then we ask the coach to reflect on them at the end of the session or meeting with the person. So one of the very important process that we adopt is called reflect, review, and refresh process. That when a coach has to learn something, he has to, after a particular incident or a meeting, come back and write down how I did in that meeting for the goal that I am supposed to work. If my goal is listening, did I listen well? Did I write down? Did I ask right question? Did I summarize? Yes, no, yes, no. And then after a week, he can total up number of time where he can do what was right and where he did not do it right. And then take a target, next time I will do a better job, and then decide what I will do to a better job. So reflect, review is like making a journal. Review is really observing for trend, what are my priority, and refresh means what I will do next week so that I will back on track. So when the coach meets you, he is able to sit down on these success stories with you and really help you understand how you have done the reflect, review, refresh, and move forward. So each of this process, whether it is assertive communication, now assertive communication also sometimes is a very tricky subject. Everybody has a different understanding. What is aggressive, what is assertive, or what is non-assertive has a different meaning to people. And quite often, you have assertive would mean you have to be nice and firm. There are a lot of people believe that if I am a nice person, people will like me, but a nice person may become soft and he may not put his foot down and he may not say no when he's supposed to say. So a good balance of being nice and firm makes a big difference. Another important skill is managing conflicts. Now, when we talk of conflict, people consider as a fight. Now, I say that we should convert this fight into a positive way and call managing a differing views. As soon as you say, look, we are both adults and we have different views, that reduces the fight. Okay, if you have different views, what is your view? What is my view? And how we can find out what is best for us. So that's how you move toward managing conflicts. Then sometimes it is time management, networking, means correcting right people, delegation. Now again, a lot of people know delegation and they will say, yes, I want to delegate authority. But right is to delegate responsibility. Because you don't delegate authority, always remains with the big boss. There is a very famous example which Abdul Kalam keeps on giving, that when the one launch failed, his boss sat down and attended the press meeting to really say that yes, my people are working and we are not done, we are not achieved today. But when the mission was successful, he asked Abdul Kalam to go and sit and say, now you face the thing. So delegation, right delegation means you delegate responsibility and not authority. But at the same time, you have to, when you delegate responsibility, you should train the person, empower the person, make him know what is required. Otherwise, it will become an upward delegation, which means you will get along, you will get into the old problem again and again and again. Same with strategic perspective. This is useful, especially when somebody is promoted from a very operational job to a general manager job, where he has to really have a much broader view of the future of the company. And that's where you need to work on a strategic perspective. So these are some of the skills area that we work while coaching our clients. So this is what are the various coaching cases and the coaching skills. This is the flow that we follow. Now, typically our first meeting is we call chemistry meeting, because it is known that, one of the biggest success factor for any coaching is willingness on the part of the coachee, supportive organization of the sponsor, and coaching chemistry or trust. Hence, it is very important that the first step of chemistry meeting is where we really understand how willing is the coachee to learn and change. If coachee said, look, if we find that the coachee is not willing to make a change, then it becomes very difficult to achieve good results in a coaching period. It may take much longer or sometimes may be very difficult. Hence, coaching chemistry is very important. So, and a coach and coachee must get along, they must trust each other. Because only when the coachee is willing to share his inner feelings and inner issues, there will be a right solution. Having done that meeting, then we have a joint meeting with the sponsor, who will be typically boss of the company, or the sometime a part of the board member if you are talking to CEO or a managing director. And with him, we really try to understand what is it that we want to achieve. And that is called a coaching agenda. So that the company, the coachee and me are on the same page to understand what we want to do. Then we have 2 sessions approximately to discover the person, which are personal sessions, where we really say, as I mentioned earlier, from story, go to story behind story to the real story. Then we use what is called conversational 360 or various psychometric tests. In the personal discussion, we tend to make an assessment. Like if you go to a doctor, he may listen to your history and he may think that this may be a possible disease and this may be a possible solution. But to validate that, he may come back and say, let's get some blood report, or let's get some ECG report, or let's get some MRI report. So this is that step where you try to ascertain objectively a possible hypothesis that are necessary, and then find out, then match your subjective assessment with objective assessment, so that you are able to do what is right for the coaching. Then in the next session, you develop goal, action plan, and strategy, etc., so that we very clear as to what is that need to be done. Now, at this point, again, you go back to sponsor and tell the sponsor that this is what we plan to work and this is how we are going to work. So again, if the sponsor feels that this is not the right thing, he will help us. Now, this is what is typically done in a business situation, because end of the day, the client pays for your fees, but you have to be coachee centric, and hence you have to focus on what is right for the coachee. But you want to make sure it is good for the company also. And that's why this midterm review is the sponsor. Then have personal sessions and work on this, what I just mentioned, reflect, review, refresh for action taken, and develop a framework so that what you have learned is continued. Because the coaching assignment is for a fixed period of 8 sessions. After that, we want to make sure that the coachee is on his or her own. So we really imbibe skills so that he can be self-aware and self-manage and really handle tomorrow's problem, which may not have been discussed today. But now he has a basic approach or a framework to self-coach himself. Okay? Then again, before we close, we do a validation 360 by talking to several people around you, find out whether has he made the change and has the change been observed. And then we go back and tell the sponsor, these are the result of the validation 360. This is what they have observed. The sponsor also can add his or her view. Yes, I observed so and so. And then we tell the sponsor, this is what he may or she needs to do now, because now you take over as a coach and help the person go further. So these are the various steps that you have to systematically follow. Sometimes we may go up and down, but at the end of the day, we follow these steps to make sure that we are able to achieve result in a very professional, systematic, and a scientific manner. Now, what is required to become a good coach? A good coach is one who has a good business experience because he has seen various challenges in his life for business and for people. The skills required for a good coach are empathetic presence, active listening, empathetic understanding, probing, summarizing, challenging, and there are a few more, but these are something which are very important. Empathetic really means understanding the other person's perspective. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you should understand it and you should recognize and tell the person, well, I understand what you mean. I understand your frustration. I understand that what you want to do is not happening. I understand that XYZ is not doing ABC. So you are able to empathetically understand the other person. You don't need to agree to it. And then you need to give your response. Now, active listening is again very important because listening will help you make sure that your coaching session moves forward. That means one of the objective for a good coaching is that once you understood, you should be able to put a right question so that it will take you to the next level. Empathetic understanding, empathetic presence is being present so the other person feels trust with you. Understanding is really understanding the person. Now, summarizing is another very important skill that after somebody has explained something, you want to summarize because then the person will understand that I have understood, my issues are understood, and now what the coach is telling me is meaningful. So you summarize and then decide whether you want to probe further or take it forward. Now, sometimes you have to challenge the person. If the person does not do what is required, you may have to challenge the person. So these are all very important skills required to become a good coach. I just mentioned about success factors, so I'll skip them. Now, what are the certifications available? The Coaching Foundation in India, from where I was certified in 2010, they have typically 2 occasions of classroom sessions and they take 4 days meeting in Chennai. Thereafter, they ask you to take 2 coaching assignments. Now, when you do these 2 coaching assignments, you get a support of a senior coach as a guide. So I am one of the senior guide in CFI, and I have coached, I have kind of guided more than 30 people who have been certified as a postgraduate executive in postgraduate diploma in executive coaching. So I am a guide for that postgraduate program, and I have certified almost a work of 30 people so that they can get certification. Now, after completing the assignment, to submit coaching case studies, what you have done, you talk about what you have done in the personal journey. That means what you have done to transform yourself to become a coach. Then you appear for a Viva. And hence the whole process may take almost 10 months. It is very vigorous, very rigorous. And in my view, and maybe one can say I'm biased, it is one of the best certification process for those who are serious. There are few agencies who may give you for not being so serious. But as a professional, I cannot talk about them. I can only say that CFI will make sure that you are really gone through proper grill. And once you're certified, you are really good in doing executive coaching. Now, what are the opportunities that I can see a chartered accountant can get from being an executive coach, which is what Nitin Bhai mentioned in the beginning. One, you can offer executive coaching as a specialized management consultant. Because as I mentioned earlier, executive coaching is part of the leadership development. And those of you who are inclined to do management consulting and maybe providing some help in management consulting can consider this as an avenue. And if an organization start, it will become big because currently, as I mentioned earlier, the coaches are fragmented. And if there is a way to do as an organization, perhaps it will be a big thing. In my mind, the chartered accountants are very well placed to do executive coaching because by very nature of your function and job, you have excellent knowledge about business of various companies, various problems and dynamics of the company, and you work for several industries. So you have a very wide experience of various industries, various problems, various challenges, various people, various functions. Because sometimes you may do internal audit of a purchase, sometimes you may do marketing. So you have extremely good knowledge about vast business. And another which I consider very, very important, that all of you have very trusted relation with the CXOs of the company. Typically, CFOs and CEOs, you have direct access, and they trust you. They trust your ability to guide them. They trust your ability to really do what is necessary. They come to you for help. Now, executive coaching is a helping profession. So you're already a helping profession, and you have what I call extremely good raw material to be shaped into become a very good executive coach. So hence, in my mind, this could be one of the very good opportunity for those who are interested in becoming more specialized management consultancy, get certified as an executive coach. Number two, even if you do not want to practice as a coach, the learning skills of a coaching will help you develop your own people. I can tell you from my experience, when I did in 2010 my executive coaching certification, I strongly felt that if I studied there before I became managing director, I would have been more effective. I would have not made those mistakes which I made as a managing director. So I can tell from my personal experience that learning the skills of a good coach and becoming a leader as a coach will help you develop your own practice, and you can scale up your own practice. Lastly, a small marketing for myself, that you can recommend to your client that engage an external coach like Pradeep Shroff when you find that a client can do better with the help of executive coaching. So with that, I complete my presentation. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank Nitin Bhai, Mukesh Bhai, Govindji, Bombay Chartered Accountant Society for giving me this opportunity. And in case anybody wants to contact me, my email ID is there. And with this, over to Mukesh Bhai or Nitin Bhai to conduct any question, if anybody has any question.
Govindji Bhai, before I start the QA, would you like to have your inputs?
No, Mukesh bhai, you please go ahead. Whatever questions are there,
Yes,
that
yes.
we can raise
Yes,
and
yes.
whatever.
And friends, you can definitely type the questions in the chat box so that we can try to take up and moderate it. And wherever learner speaker could not reach, we can try to communicate to him. That was wonderful and very holistic and 360-degree view about the coaching. So one of our participants who has been very keen, he's Ashish Agarwal. Congratulations, Ashish, for raising very beautiful questions. He says that, sir, can you kindly suggest means for we, the chartered accountants, to develop ourselves by finding a coach? And number two, reading materials, seminar, short courses to enable us to provide us the coaching services to the promoters and the business owners. Yes.
One, of course, if you just want for yourself, I mean, through Mukesh Bhai or Nitin Bhai, contact me. If you want to also know about Coaching Foundation, I will provide details to them, and then they will circulate as to what are the programs of Coaching Foundation. In fact, one batch is scheduled to be starting in another 3-4 weeks time. So if somebody is very keen to start a certification process, the next batch is likely to happen in over 1 month's time. And you can join that course. And before that, in case you want to talk to me, I'll be happy to just give you any advice and suggestions as to what you can do for that. So I'll be very happy to guide you if you want to become a coach.
Yeah. Now, the second question is that we as a CA ourselves also required to be coached, because we are more on the details and we miss the macro and the big picture. How would you like to respond on that question?
Well, as I said, each coaching is very individual. And if you feel that there is a kind of a common issue among the few chartered accountants, Bombay Chartered Accountant Association Society can consider having a group coaching, where we form a so-called business forum group of few chartered accountants.
Okay.
And then an executive coach can really carry out a group coaching for the group, where we know that the by and large the agenda is common, and there is good level of trust among each other. We have to be only careful that confidential personal business information is not shared.
Correct.
But the issues can be discussed, and
Yeah.
a group coaching can really help evolve solutions which you can go back and practice in your own practice.
Correct. Generally, from the perspective of perception or rather acceptability, is there a sort of age factor that very young person, very dynamic, but at the same very mature, but then he may be undermined, and at the same time with a gray hair and something, people may be accepting him with some kind of respect or something?
Very, very good question. You see, I'm not sure whether age is a barrier to learning, because there are people who are willing to learn. That's as I did absolutely.
True.
So age is genuinely not a barrier. But sometimes people do feel that, look, I know it. And to that extent, it becomes that much more challenge for a coach to provide.
True.
At a younger age, typically, there is a lot more need for knowledge building. It's like, when a software is new, you need to build up the database of the software.
True.
So at a younger age, there is a lot more hunger or need for knowledge than a behavioral or a polishing a particular skill.
Correct.
A young person can sometimes get away because he's typically working on his own. And hence he can get away by being a little more aggressive.
Right.
But at a senior level, one has to be a lot more mature, a lot more balanced, a lot more cool. So the behavioral pattern are a lot more valuable, and they bring more value to a person with more experience. But as you rightly said, behavioral formed over a period of time is difficult to change.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge for a coach. And there are lots of techniques that we use to help you change. Like one of the things that we do is, and either through our probing or through 360 or through psychometric tools, help you see the consequences of what you are doing.
Right.
Once you start seeing the consequences, you are intelligent enough to know what is right and what is wrong. So we focus on showing you, look, whatever you are doing is right, but look, these are consequences.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with it?
True.
What to do this?
Right.
Like in a business organization, maybe turnover employees. And if you say, look, your turnover employees more than the average turnover employees, what do you think is likely to happen? And the 360 tells you all 360 indicates that your listening score is slow. So you think you need to have a relook at my listening score.
Very true.
So using objective and in the subjective views, we really help coaches recognize the importance of making a change. Identify motivation to make a change. And only when there are motivators, they'll change. And I'll give a small example for motivation. I was doing team coaching for a person who got promoted from salesman to become sales director in a pharma company.
Wow.
Now, having become a sales director, he was still selling is my first love. So he wants to talk to his doctor, his pharma company. So he wants to talk to salesman. He wants to go and meet a doctor. The pharma company has 1,000 salesmen. How many doctors can you cover and what can you do?
Correct.
So you need to have a mechanism so that there are regional managers who will manage the salesmen.
Right.
You need to delegate. You need to manage your time. Now, this guy was not doing all that. With the result, he was going very, like he used to say that I am the last one to leave the office and the security will lock the door. So we said, what is this? Now, when he had to work on time management, what kind of motivation can I build?
Right.
I understood his personal need. And we discovered, because one of the important motivator for change is you need to have an emotionally satisfying goal.
Absolutely.
If there is no emotionally satisfying goal, I will not change.
I agree. I
so
agree.
this gentleman's emotional satisfying goal was, his daughter was studying for 10th standard and she was to appear for the board exam.
Okay.
He knew that her daughter's score was not well in physics and maths. So he agreed to start giving personal tuition to his daughter in the evening. Now the fun started. When he doesn't go, daughter will cry. A father cannot see tears in daughter's eyes. That was the emotional bond. He started going home in time for daughter's day. And because he had to go home in time, he had to start delegating. He has to start managing his time and whatnot.
Wow.
So you can say time management, delegation, motivation came from where? Came from daughter. So that's the challenge for a coach, to find the right motivator to bring about the change.
That was a very interesting insight, that his inner something kind of a disturbance was something different, and his role expected him to go differently, and how beautifully you could diagnose. So this diagnosis and the probing, these two are one of the most challenging for the coach himself, because he has his own limitations, he has his own thinking, he has his own background also, he has his own baggage. Despite of that, he has to rise above it and still do it.
Very good.
Can you share some?
Very, very true. You know, one of the skill that we develop as a skill is to suspend our thinking. So when the coach is talking, we just don't think, we only listen
Very true.
as much as the coaching wants. At
Hmm.
in between point, if somebody is talking too much, we may put up pause and say, may I make a suggestion? I just want to understand this. I like to summarize this. So we
Okay.
keep on putting some mechanism to make
Hmm.
sure that it doesn't become so long where it
Yeah.
becomes monodrag.
Right.
At the same time, we have to be very interested. If I show a body language of I am bored,
Hmm.
that coaching is closed. Because as soon as the coach says I'm not interested, you stop talking.
Correct.
So we have to be energetic, enthusiastic, smiling, body
Yeah.
language, and continuously
Positive,
with the
positive.
coach, very positive messages.
Correct.
And those are the
correct.
challenges. And after he has completed, ask the right question, so the coach will feel yes, he has got a
Huh.
good empathetic understanding.
Hmm.
And now I need to think what he's saying. I have to think, yeah, he's right. He's putting some thinking question. It's a good food for thought.
Yeah.
So those are
So,
the challenges, and that comes with a lot of experience.
yeah. So in that case, the closed questions may not work. Instead, it is going to be open question, which is
Yes,
very
yes,
important
yes.
point there.
See,
How?
very true. Coach has to ask 80% time open question.
Hmm.
Only at the end, if you find that after making all effort, nothing is happening, then
Hmm.
okay, have you considered this?
Huh.
But that is the last resort,
Yeah.
because experience has shown that the coachee will work only if the answer has come from his mouth.
That
Any
is true.
answer come from somebody else, he will not accept.
Correct. 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 There is a beautiful suggestion from one of the participants that why don't we have some kind of a workshop or some kind of regular sort of training group and all and something for which we'll try to discuss with you through Nitin Bhai and our chairman Govind Bhai and also with the president, that how we can really collaborate as a BCA vis-a-vis your CFI, and how you can be really the most important mentor for all of us, because that is a very, that means that whoever have been present, they have found a really very interesting part of the story. Any other questions? In case if anybody has, please post them so that we can immediately try to take up. Yeah, very good.
Mukesh bhai, can we circulate some material explaining that how this certification process is done?
Very good. Okay.
So
Okay.
because people may be interested in having the certification, that
Yeah.
what is the process of certification, how much
Yeah.
time it takes, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So I think if it is okay, then Nitin Bhai and myself will try to coordinate with Pradeep Bhai offline in such a way that how it can be really the process which can be covered up, and we try to even propagate or publicize through our BCA channel, so that people whoever are interested may accordingly get the right kind of understanding of it.
I'm
So
happy to provide the information. No problem.
yeah. So there may be some kind of printed material like brochure or a
It is all
prospectus.
available.
Super.
In fact, I will email to you after the meeting is over. So
Very well. So
by
that
tomorrow, because I'll have to see whether I have the
no,
latest. But I'll get it.
kindly take your own time, but we will definitely like to put it through BCA such that at least people,
Will do.
and I'm sure, see, chartered accountants have, as you very rightly said, that we have the understanding of their processes, their various mindset, psyche, the various internal corporate politics, etc. So many things we come to know. Only thing is that we have to also rise above that and ensure that we give them the larger vision which they have not thought of, that they have the potential. I'll give the example that sometimes they have a fantastic profitability, but they would like to be so conservative that they will keep hiding their facts and figures in the right way and all. So how they can really, through the growth, how they can become bigger and have the more fulfilling aspect, if you can throw some light on it, which was a sort of typical mindset situation from where he really unleashed it, as you showed about that person who wanted to teach his own daughter. Yeah.
See, experience is that since you are dealing with the people at CFN, at CEO level, and you have the full financial data, best your in tool in your hand is your data. And when you can provide a kind of what I call simulated data, that what may be your projected growth,
Correct.
with this kind of approach, any CFO CEO will jump in.
Right.
Unless the CEO, typically a business owner who say, look, I am now 70, I have no interest. I want to give up. Then you may have to still saying, look, you can unlock for the sake of next generation. And one of the appealing factor many times is what is the legacy you're leaving? Because when people start saying, look, I have done something, what is the legacy you're leaving? What will people remember you for?
Correct.
And then you realize, look, yeah, I would like to see that my brand remains alive for next 100 years. Okay, so if your brand has to remain alive, how are you going to do it? So one has to really identify the emotionally appealing reason. And that identification happens in the initial sessions. The story behind story. We even go into details of his family life, his childhood, what was the hobby in childhood, what kind of teachers he had, what kind of subject he liked, what kind of friends he had, what friendship was good, where friendship was not good. So we go into a lot of the so-called events only because we are trying to actually understand the emotional bond that we can do.
Right. Right.
So, hence, the diagnosis is very important to give solution.
Very true. Very true. And like a homeopathic doctor, constantly probing. Ultimately, it really comes up with a very zeroing position. Yeah. Anand bhai, would you like to share something, or would you like to have some kind of inputs on the question something? Anand bhai? Okay, he is not there. So, friends, it was a very interesting and at the same time very innovative subject. Thank you so much, Pradeep bhai, for sparing your time and giving us a bird's eye view with a holistic approach. And I'm sure that we have evoked enough of the interest in the participants. And out of this, we'll definitely build up on the higher way, because HR committee is the one committee where from we will be in a position to take it further, thanks to a few of the finest leaders and the chairpersons on the job. So I'm sure that we'll be in a position to, but for that, we all owe you a big gratitude and thank you so much for having given us a very fine insight on the position. It was very informative. And at the same time, it was something like a mirror for us, that whether I am a good listener, whether I'm really encouraging, whether I'm looking at the larger picture, whether I have a strategic view in my mind, am I really empathetic, etc. So each concept by itself, one has to put in practice, and you have really touched us in a very beautiful way. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. And this presentation also we'll try to share with the participants. At the same time, this recording will be shared with you as well as on the website. It will be available.
Before we close, I saw one question on the chat.
Okay.
So on the Q&A, so I'll just quickly reply. The question was, it looks more psychologically, less business. It is both. See, only there are people with a lot of psychological knowledge, but they are not able to really understand the business dynamics. To be successful, like in any field, you need to have a good amount of so-called domain knowledge. I don't need to be say, if I'm advising somebody in JSW, I may or may not have a good understanding of steel making, but I have a good understanding of how man management happens in JSW. So there are a lot of business issues that come up, and to handle the business issue, psychologically comes handy in terms of understanding the other person's point of view. So it's more of an applied psychology. And in fact, when we discuss, when you go to CFI, also will tell you, we have a borderline between us and psychiatrists. So we cannot enter into psychiatric zone.
Very true.
Because if we find a coach requires psychiatric help, we will tell the coach, stop, please get a psychiatrist. Only that one or two assignments which I did, because the coach already had a psychiatrist and I worked with the psychiatrist, because psychiatrists felt that together we can work together. He would work from the psychology angle, I'll work from business common sense angle. But otherwise, as a coach, if a coach requires psychiatric help, we refuse, we put a stop and tell the client that, look, this is not my expertise, you need to go to a psychiatrist.
Right.
So I want to thank you very much, Mukesh bhai.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. And I'm sure going by, we will have a final word before we close.
Is Gracie there for next announcement?
Yeah, Gracie should be there.
Not, seems not there.
Yeah.
So Pradeep bhai, it was wonderful session, and I feel that after listening to you, that we'll need more and more such sessions, even to create interest among the members.
Right.
Members will have to realize that this is one area where they can do wonders. If they have that kind of knowledge, they can do wonders in this field. And this has to be publicized among our members.
Correct.
Something will have to be done. We'll be working out some a detailed program on this, so we can have a longer session where we can apprise the members that really this is one of the areas like that we apprise the members for last 30 years, various subjects like international taxation, ERA, FEMA,
Pramod.
indirect taxation, etc. Like that.
हाँ
It is
हाँ
one
मुझे
of
भी
the
ये
fields
रीजनेबल लग रहा है
which
3
the
साढ़े
members
3
can
क्योंकि मैंने कल वो संदीप से भी बात किया ना तो
We'll be
वो
doing
जो
all that.
दूसरा OCR है वो भी
Thank
7-8
you very
रुपया
much
बोल रहा है
for
पर पेज
sharing your
और
time.
उसमें कोई वैलिडेशन चेक
Pradeep
नहीं है
bhai,
तो
may I request
रीजनेबल हो
all the
रहा है
participants to raise their hands to say thank you to Shri Pradeep bhai. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pradeep Bhai. Thank you, Nitin Bhai, for giving us
Thank you.
wonderful person in Pradeep Bhai. And today was a session so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.